This is the Our York Media Podcast, where we talk with the good news makers of York County, Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Rebecca Hanlon. Give Local York is quickly approaching. Friday, May 1st is York County's third annual Day of Giving, where you have 24 hours to donate to hundreds of nonprofits making a difference in our community. Want to know why others give of their time and dollars? We're running a special Neighbors of Our York series featuring those who volunteer and donate to these organizations. We appreciate York Traditions Bank for sponsoring that series. You can check on those profiles and more at ouryorkmedia.com. This week's White Rose Award goes to Alyssa Rohrbaugh. Alyssa is involved in Not One More, an area nonprofit with a mission to raise awareness and prevent drug abuse. But Alyssa also has her hands in a lot of other organizations and helps those with an idea for a nonprofit or volunteer organization bring it to fruition. It's tough to know when she sleeps, we're told, because this isn't part of her job. She does it because she cares. Forrest Yingling, who nominated Alyssa, says it's hard to put into words. She shows up for a lot of people. Do you know someone in York who deserves a little recognition? Nominate them for a White Rose. Visit ouryorkmedia.com and you'll find a nomination form under our podcast page. Today we're sitting down with Brando Manuel Jaimes-Diaz. Brando is often behind the scenes in a kitchen, but we asked him to step out from behind the stove to tell us a little bit about his culinary journey in York and why he's pursuing it here. Brando, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, one thing that we're asking everybody that's been on is, why is York home?
York, it's a hard but easy one. Born, raised here pretty much. My entire family's here. I was getting ready to leave at one point, 18 years old. I'm like, can't wait to dart out the door. And then, I don't know, like, Anissa, my family, her family, like, kind of grounded me here. Like, I felt more at home than I've ever been. Especially with, especially Pacos, man. That sense of community ever since has been, mind-blowing to me. And I just I have never felt this wanting to stay in York, ever. Remember, ever since as a kid, I was like, nah, I'm going to move to New York, to Philadelphia, one of the best cities out there. And, you visit, you go, and then you're like, it's okay. But, the sense of home is a little different now. I don't know if it's Aiden. I don't know if it's...
And Aiden's your little boy.
Yeah,
Aiden's
my son. Yeah, Aiden's my son. And he's 4 years old. Well, about to be 4 years old. And I don't know. It's hard to describe, because I've never felt like this. I never felt stuck to a city. Oh no, I never felt attached to York like that. You grew up in it, but you assume it's like this everywhere else. You assume everyone's playing basketball on the street, everyone's running around up and down the city. Everyone has his bad, everyone has his good. I always knew that part. I always knew that no matter where I moved to, whatever problems that are in my city are going to be in this city as well. So I never wanted to leave because, I hate York or this is where I want to get out of it. It's just I wanted to explore. I wanted to see bigger cities and see bigger things. But now I want to be home. I want to grow those things here. And I don't understand it. Why? It's hard to explain.
It pulls you.
Yeah, because everyone that grows up in York pretty much says the same thing. I can't wait to get out of York. And it's weird saying that I want to stay in York.
Yeah.
Especially from people that I've grown up around, and you hear it left and right. Everyone says it. I can't wait to leave York. I can't wait to go here or there or wherever they want to go.
I hear that a lot in York, but I think it's also a typical, probably high school perspective.
That's what I always thought.
Get out and see the world, or just something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but something pulls you home.
I think, I think it's a mix of everything. That family, the community, all of it just makes me feel more at home than ever before.
Yeah. So people might know you more recently for Paco's Tacos, which you had in the Taste Test Incubator. Talk to us about kind of getting in there in terms of your culinary journey. When you were growing up in York County, little boy, did you want to be in the kitchen?
Always. I can, my earliest memories are in the kitchen. I remember pulling up a chair, cracking an egg and burning eggs 20 times before I got it right. taste test, like, that one was, I remember skipping out on the first audition. Like, I got ready to, like, go in and, like, pitch my meeting to the panelists, the people there, like, from Tony Grow to Alice and all of them. I was, like, getting ready, not back down. And Lisa was very upset with me. She was like, oh, you gotta do it. Go. And then there was another audition, like, maybe 2 weeks later, and she pushed me. And she literally, like, had to walk with me up to the door, and we went in there and doing that audition. I was still nervous because of my skill set. I was like, because I had this mindset. I was like, oh, well, since a kid, I was like, oh, I'll go to culinary school, and then I'll go here and I'll learn from the best chefs, and then I'll go to a nice restaurant and I'll work there for a year. I'll go to another restaurant, work there for a year, and that the plan never went according to plan. I graduated high school and then went and worked at a diner for 3 years. And then I remember the first year, I felt like maybe I wasn't cut out for it. I remember my uncle pulling me aside and saying, hey, you got to get faster or else we're going to have to let you go. And this is just a diner. I'm like, looking at myself in the mirror like, wow, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And like, they would say like, hey, you know, like, you got to, like, you know, it was kitchen talk. So like, they'll let you know when you're slow. They'll let you know when you're not up to par. And it was like, it makes you question your ability. You're like, man, I don't know if I'm cut out. If I can't do a diner, how am I ever going to do a fine dining? How am I ever going to do my own thing if I can't handle this? Because, you know, coming out of high school, I thought I was a hot shot. I was, like, real good in school. I was, you know, top of my class in baking, top of my class in culinary. And I was like, oh, this is easy. I'm gonna have this in the bag. And then first 3 months to 6 months, I was stunned because I could not keep up. We're like 200 people on a Sunday, and it's just like falling behind, you know? And then I remember like the taste test things happened. That was only a year and a half after I left the diner. Okay. So not much, I haven't built on much. So I was just like, I got really good at the diner, but then started doubting myself again. I was like, I don't know, maybe I should just move a career. Like, maybe I'm not meant for this. You know, I was doing 60 hours and I was getting tired of it. Like 60, 70 hours. I was like, I want to go out and have fun. I want to, you know, me and my lady would go to New York, Philly, and have trips, but it was hard because of my work schedule. Yeah. We were always working, and it's just like, you know, you can't really ask for time off in this kind of industry. It's like they need you. And if they replace you, then they replace you. You got to go find a new job. Like, it's not like job security doesn't really work with your schedule. It doesn't like, at least that's what I always thought it was going to be like. I always thought that's what it was always going to be like wherever I went. I was like, hard hours, long hours, all the time. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want to do this. And then taste test happened, and it was incredible, honestly, because, like, I honestly thought I wasn't prepared. I went in, and we did tacos, and I maybe had, I know it sounds weird to say I only had, like, a year experience of tacos, but it was barely that. Because, you know, I grew up on tacos, but I never made them. I never made them at home. Okay. Because I always wanted to get out of cooking. I was like, I wanted to get out of Mexican cooking. I see, okay. I grew up in Mexican food, and you can only have, like, corn and beans and the same thing so many times before you're like, all right, I'm done. I remember like, ooh, I'm going to study French cooking. I'm going to study Italian. One of these is going to be the ones for me. And I did them all. I did Italian. I did some French. I did American cuisine, whatever. I tried them all. Well, maybe Japanese is the one. I'm going to wait for that. Okay. But
you have time.
Yeah, I have time. And then so it was funny because Anissa taco for the first time. And making it for the first time, I felt very confused because I was like, I didn't know. I was like, oh man, like, I didn't know how to make a salsa verde. I didn't know how to make a good guac. I didn't know how to make any of that. It sounds weird saying it, but that was only like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I could barely make a taco. And the first taco I made her, she spits it out. And it was so funny because I was like, kind of like, what? And the funny story is it was a breakfast taco. It was like a little medium mango. Okay. And that's how we found out she was pregnant.
Oh, there you go.
And so it was a cute little story. But at the time, I was very
that she spit out.
Yeah, I was very confused. I was like, okay, maybe I'm just done cooking because this is not meant for me.
When the people you love are spitting out your food, that maybe is the feedback.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh man. So then tacos, getting into Mexican cooking, like, and like touching a little bit again. I'm like, all right, well, how do I make a guac? And I like started getting into it, and then tasting it. And I'm like, this is not what it's supposed to taste like. Memories are there, like all the like what it's supposed to taste like is there, but I don't know how to make it. So I remember like trying to tap into it, and I would like pick up books and look at YouTube videos, and I'm like looking at their stuff. I'm like, that doesn't look right. That doesn't feel like what it's supposed to look or taste like. And I dug into the rabbit hole where I was like, every YouTube video, every book on Mexican cuisine, like everything but call my mom, because I didn't want to like embarrass her, because I like she has a different way of teaching. It's very like her way or the highway, but like mom's like always thought like mom's cuisine wasn't like tuned to like what fine dining is.
I see.
You know what I'm saying? There isn't like the peeling of the skins. It was put everything in the blender, blend it up, and leave it a little chunky. But I'm like, I just want to put those like fine touches on there. I was like, well, I want to get better quality product. She didn't understand that part. I'm like, Mom, you know, like I'm gonna get this beef from Locust Point, and I'll tell her how much it was. She's like, you're paying how much for what? No.
She's shopping for a family.
Yeah,
she's shopping to a budget.
Exactly. Yeah. And so like that was the hard part to like explain to her about what I'm trying to do for my cooking. Because Mexican cuisine, like to me, like it involved from poor people cooking. Like it just involved from like, and that's almost any cuisine in the world. But like that's how I started really like diving deep. I was like, wow, it's just like all the things I loved as a child were so easy to make, in a sense where I was like fine tuning them. I was like adding my own touches, and like at the end of the day, it got easier to cook with all this stuff. Like the more I got in touch with like York County product, I was like, the minute I started like infusing like local beets and sweet potatoes into Mexican cooking, that people were looking at me like, beets aren't Mexican, like those aren't a thing. But then I put on a bed of guac and I hit it with some arbol salsa, and it's just like, oh, they're like, oh, this is like tortillas and potatoes. Like it resembles something to them. But I was able to use what I loved about cooking, which was using like fresh product, fresh ingredients, like stuff that's not just good for you, but just good for your like your environment. Like whether it's financially, like you're supporting your community, or just like eco-friendly stuff, like that's not like damaging the planet at the same time. Like it started like everything started kind of clicking at a certain point for me, like because I always knew that when I got into cooking, like I didn't want to be like the rest. I didn't want to be like, I could always open up a quick taco shop and make the same stuff that everyone's making. But I knew I would never be satisfied. I knew it wasn't gonna like make me happy to like cook that food. And so I knew like it was hard for me to kind of like pinpoint what I wanted to cook, because I was like, man, like I felt like if I couldn't make my mom happy with the food I was cooking, like was I gonna make anyone like happy with like this style of Mexican cooking, like this approach I was taking on it? Or was I gonna make them satisfied enough to keep the bills paid? And like it's like, am I taking too much of a risk? Like, is it even worth it? Like what? I had all these questions. I was like, man, like it was really like at one point just kicking me. I was like, I don't know, like do I just sell out? Like it felt like a sellout to like just do your typical Mexican cuisine, which was like, everyone knows what that is. You'll find it at anytime what they tell me to make is what I'll say. But
well, Taste Test is really kind of the place to try that stuff.
Yeah, and it was perfect because like honestly, that whole year, I look back from even the last thing I made, I'm just looking back, I'm like, whoa, I wouldn't make it like that anymore, because I got to like experiment. I got to like test what did work out, what wasn't going to work out.
What do you think your biggest lesson was from Taste Test?
Honestly, it was just the year of growth I got to see in my culinary growth. Like it was like the biggest thing, because it was like in that 1 year I felt like I learned more with my culinary skills, because I literally just got to experiment. And that's like one of the hard parts working anywhere, is like there isn't the funds to experiment. Like you're given a task and you got to do the task, and you usually got to stay within that task to make it right. And, you know, you can't like experiment out there like, hey, here's these ingredients for olive cake. I can't go and make a flan. You know, that wouldn't be okay. But I got to experiment a little bit at Tony's for a while. Like the chef let me like be creative with what I put on the menu, and that kind of gave me that first itch to like really start experimenting. Because it was always like follow the recipe, do what the recipe says, and stay within those boundaries. And then I got to just freeball, almost like freestyle. I don't know how it was like. I was making dishes in my head before I got to even plate them, and like I wasn't really following the recipe. I was just like, all right, pulling this from here, this from there, and like combining these things, and they were good. And it was hard for me to explain that to people. I was like, I don't know how I'm doing it, or like what my thought process is, or what the recipe is right now, because I'm still fine tuning it. Like I remember making this mushroom tostada for Paco's, and I did not get to taste it till maybe the 10th one got sent out. Like we sold 10, and I still didn't taste it.
You hadn't tasted it?
Because I hate mushrooms. I hate mushrooms.
That's like a golden rule, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
like
you're always supposed to taste
it.
everything. And like in my head, I'm like, I know what it tastes like. I'm like, all the layers of flavor built up. And I remember there was an extra one. I was like, let me just give it a quick taste. And I was blown away. I was like, yo, this is so good. Like mushrooms aren't that bad. And I'm like, we crisping up the mushrooms just enough. Like I like the way like I just took it how Taylor used to make them at Tony's, and I just like adjusted a little bit. I added some spice to it, added a little bit, but the same technique.
Yeah.
So the same technique, I just added some spice to it, added a little flavor, built it on top of like already Mexican ingredients, and it was just like mind blowing. But I already knew, I know what mushrooms are supposed to taste like. I just don't like them in my mouth. It's a weird texture thing, and I was just like, I know what this is supposed to taste like. I know what this is supposed to taste like, and this, and it all came together. And I was perfect. And I've done that so many times to the point where she gets upset. My girl gets so upset with me because I know what a dish will taste like, and sometimes we were such in the pinch at Power. Sometimes we were always just like running around, like trying to get things done at the last minute, because half the time it was just me, my lady, and maybe a hand or two. Like we didn't have a full staff.
Yeah.
And sometimes we were like running to the edge, like to the finish line, just trying to get things done. And I want to taste things, and I know that's like the golden rule. But part of me, it was like, part of me is like, if I don't let it go, I'm not gonna let it go. Like I'm not gonna let it leave the window. If I'm like tasting it and I feel like it could be better, because I know it can. I know
you're gonna
perfect it, and like I just sometimes gotta let it go. And I we'll finish that night, and then like 2 weeks later, I'll get back to it. I'll taste it again. I'm like, no, nothing. A week later, something will strike me. I'm like, oh, you know what? This needed this, and I'll switch it up. The amount of times I changed like just the way the kitchen layout was at Paco's for the first 6 months, I think it was maybe 6 times. Like once every month, I was like moving the fridge to the left side of the thing, just because it could speed up your process, or it could like make things like how we sauteed the mushrooms were different, or how we made the beans, or how we held them was different. And it was just like every single week I was making a little adjustment, and just because we could, like I didn't have a chef to tell me this is the way we're doing it,
right?
That's it. Like here's the process, and we followed it. I was able to always like every week just change a little something about it, change the way we made the carnitas, and I didn't have anyone saying, hey, stop changing this. Hey, this is the way things are supposed to, which is also a golden rule. Consistency is a golden rule in the restaurant game. But Taste Test let us not be consistent and let us be like experimental. Like change the menu every month. Change this, because there was times at the end where, we weren't supposed to do Taste Test for a whole year. It was always like 1 month. Then we're like, all right, we'll do 6 months. And then towards the end, we were like, all right, we need to start. We were trying to save money, like, because it was, winter time. Business started to slow down. And we're still like, everything's coming out of our pockets at the end. And we're like, still like trying to hustle by, send our kid to daycare, do all the things that like, any entrepreneur is trying to do. But so I'm changing the menu almost every 2 weeks at this point, like trying to like, all right, we have a bunch of tomatoes, we'll make a tomato-based menu, or stuff like that, just to the point where we were literally just kind of like getting by every week. And it was just, but it was also like improving the food at the same time, because of how like resourceful we had to be. Like we were like, I remember one time making this, what do we do with someone dropped off peppers for us, and I was like, we made a sriracha. I never made a sriracha. Like we fermented the peppers, We experimented with it, and I never made it, but I knew all those would have gone bad and would have just been wasteful money. But we just got to experiment there the whole time, which was nice. It was real, like, it was a big boost to my skill set. I feel like I don't feel like I would be where I'm at right now if it wasn't for that 1 year in Taste Test. I feel has done for me in like 5 years of culinary.
What have you been doing since then?
Just some like consulting work here and there. I'll like work 2 days a week at one restaurant. Work 2 days at the market with Locust Point. And like Locust Point, I love working there, man, because I got my main end goal one day is to be as full farm to table as I could possibly be.
Okay.
That means, and like listening Lee's story every day about why she got into the business and why she's doing it, and like how they're trying to be the best they can be in their product. To me, that's like what it's all about. Like, I could go on the longest rant possible about Big Pharma, and when I say Big Pharma, I'm saying like farm factories and stuff like that. But I don't want to slander on. Probably, I already learned my lesson once with Fox. It's just like that's one of the biggest drives now for me, like in this going, is the way stuff gets made, and not even just meat, but also your vegetables. Like I feel like it's that's a long one, but pushing a good product for me is always like first priority. Like they're working for Locust Point, working for anyone is always about what kind of product are you pushing out, like what are we pushing out into the community, and like why are we doing it? Because one of my biggest pet peeves is like our knowledge of food, and it's hard. You can't really blame anyone because I'm just learning about it. I'm just getting into it. I'm only maybe 5-6 years. I remember in high school telling people to stop shopping at Walmart. I tell people like try to support local, but I didn't know what that meant. I was like, it was hard for me to like run here, run there, run here for this and that product, and it got easier over time because you start learning where the best produce is, where the best stuff is, where you could get soap at, like all the simple things you need at Walmart. You learn to find those things out over time, but at first it is difficult. You're like, oh man, I don't know what people get at Walmart anymore nowadays. But I just remember like having this big like, I want to call it a fight. I don't know what you want to call it, with like industrial farming, and it's just I don't know. I'm trying not to talk about them too much, but
you found ways to kind of elevate the everyday things that we need and use.
But I mean, that's why I'm working at Locust Point and like a place like that for now, is to like learn more about how that works, like the in and outs of like how can we make a sustainable farm, how can we like make it like humane certified, how you operate that on an everyday basis, because that's the way I see my restaurant operating in the future, is using all that, and then using that product in the public eye can be expensive. Everyone goes to your grass-fed beef, and they're like, oh, grass-fed beef is more expensive than the beef at Walmart, and it's more expensive than the beef you'll buy at the restaurant store or you'll get from Cisco, or etc. And those will be the problems that I know in the future will lie ahead of me. Like, how can I make this affordable for the public? Like, how can I make grass-fed beef, stuff that's really good for us and like good for the environment, good for the for everyone? How can I make this cheap? Like, because it wasn't if I bought through a middleman. I was like, but if I get straight to the source, I know I can make it cheap. I know I can make it down to $3, $2 a tacos instead of $5 or $6. And so that's my key role now, is to learn what I can do to like kind of manifest that, make that happen for my place, for my restaurant in the future, for my future endeavors. And so like that's what I'm doing now, is to like learn what I can do to set that up, because it's not like you could just start a restaurant, buy a cow, and then just have that cow just sitting in your backyard. Or I didn't know you needed an acre of land for each cow to like have enough grass, and so it could rotate. Like, I didn't know that. I didn't know what falls under humane certification versus USDA certification. So, like, I didn't know any of that information. Like, again, to learn it, I didn't know butchering a cow was the same as butchering a pig. So if you price on the pig, it's cheaper versus than buying a couple of cows, etc. So that's what I'm doing now, is to like kind of start putting the little pieces that I'm not really aware of together. So when I do open up the restaurant down the road, I'm ready. I'm ready to start farm the table day one, and I don't have to like kind of build into it. Because that's my like thing that's holding me back now is the more I've gotten into the farm the table, the harder it is for me to happily open my restaurant. Like it's hard for me to know that the restaurant, to be successful, I would have to go for cheaper product. You know, I would have to make money, I would have to go with cheaper product, and that's something I don't want to do. I don't want to, you know, buy the cheap pork, the cheap beef, the cheap chicken just because it'll make me money. And it's been like a tough battle, like, to figure it out, because it's like, where do we cut the corners at? Where do you like make the money? Because if we're losing money, and you know, there's no business. So
what does that restaurant look like? Say you've gotten all the pieces figured out, you're there. What is that vision?
Part of me is like, it focuses a lot on the food. So it'll be, the best way I can put it is like, it's not taking the money and like, so like, all right, so it's real simple business. Like, you know, a restaurant will be 20% goes into your food. That's usually the average cost. And it'll be about another, I think it's 18 to 25 for labor, you know, 30% for rent, etc. So I'm like looking at the rent, you know, that's the biggest part. I'm like, well, how can I get that rent to minimize so I can like then put 30-40% in the food and pay that cost to have, you know, humane certified, like properly raised food. Like how can I get that? So the future restaurant barely looks like a little shack almost, maybe a house, minimum like to the point where no one's paying to sit down or for the lights, for any of that. All you're paying for is the food. And that's like one of my restaurants. That's like one of the staples where I could get the best quality food that, you know, the fine dining restaurants are doing, but for $2, $3, because, you know, once you're breaking down whole animals, you can get it down to that cost. Once you're,
make it accessible.
You know, make it accessible. So that's, to me, is what my first restaurant looked like. It would be like plain walls, nothing, maybe plastic chairs, as cheap as I can get it, so it can be maintained cheaply, like keep the labor low, and just cook really great food from like sustainable product. But at the same time, I know that's a numbers game. So once you start producing like that, you gotta start producing more. So that's where I'm worried at. Will I be using too many animals at that point? How many animals will I be going through at that point to sustain a restaurant like that? And that's my other concern, is like, and I don't want to overuse. I don't want to be another contributing factor to something that I feel that isn't like fixed yet. Like the problem isn't fixed. Like, yes, we have Locust Point, we have more farms now than we have in the, you know, when I was 10 years ago. And so it's nice to see that more options are popping up, but you know, they still need more support. So like, I feel like, all right, if I get more business flowing for them, they can grow their operations. Maybe they can open up a second farm. They can do that. So like, that's what I see it being like, is being a minimal and just focusing on the food, just the food.
Well, I look forward to going there whenever you're ready to open it. Sure. Brando, thank you for coming on today and talking to us a little bit about what you do. I'm excited to see what the next thing is.
Awesome. Yeah. You know, whenever that pops up, that'll be...
You let me know.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
Good. Before we end, have we mentioned how grateful we are that you're spending time with us? Each time you listen, download, or even better, subscribe to our podcast, you're helping support us in our mission to give York something better to talk about. For more information on Our York Media and our Good News Initiative, you can visit ouryorkmedia.com. The Our York Media podcast is produced by Will Hanlon and Ken Brueggemann. I'm Rebecca Hanlon. Thanks so much for listening.